sitting down with Mike Repetti, the Chief Digital and Technology Officer for the Habit Burger and Grill. Mike, thanks for joining me.
Absolutely, Sam. Good to see you.
So, Mike, we talked earlier today on stage here at FS Tech, and we were talking about your role at Habit Burger and specifically your technology strategy. And so one of the interesting things about your technology strategy is you've been with Habit Burger for many years, since it was a smaller company.
13.
So 13 years, but 37 locations they had when you joined, is that right?
That's right, yeah.
And now it's 300?
Just under 400, kind of
400.
changes on a daily basis, but
Sure.
right about 385, I think, and then another 13 food trucks on top of that.
Oh, amazing. So you've watched incredible growth at this company. And the other big thing that's happened in your tenure with Habit Burger is March of 2020, not what you think I'm going to say. What I am going to say is you got acquired by Yum Brands.
Oh, yeah, that little company got us.
A minor detail. So let's start, Mike, with just pre-Yum part of this story. What was Habit Burger's tech strategy, certainly when you joined at Store 37 and in those early years?
Yeah, I mean, look, I joined as a department of one back at Store 37, and we had one drive-through location. The week I started, we opened our first food truck. I just mentioned we had 13 of them. And, over the next 13 years, we've grown it now to 385 stores, 13 food trucks. We had one drive-through. I think now we have about 120 drive-through locations. So started as a department of one, and I think there's about, plus or minus 50 of us now in the department. And really, back then, the strategy was just taking care of the guests, creating good food, and technology was kind of an afterthought. And when I was brought on board, it was really hey, there's a lot of really cool stuff happening in tech. We don't have this legacy tech debt that a lot of companies our age and size have, but it's time to really invest in it and start to figure some things out. And so thankfully, I think we had some early wins and really started to look at technology as not just like a cost center, like kind of historically, hey, it's POS and it's an email and printers and stuff like that, but how can we use technology as a strategic advantage for the business, right? And we want to have technology in every conversation and really have it enable the business as opposed to just be a cost center. And that's kind of the guiding principle. Mm-hmm. And like I said, we got some early wins, and along the way, just continue to prove out and got the support of the board. And really, like, everything we did was through the team member perspective, through the customer perspective, and just were able to build on that and capitalize and really do some pretty cool stuff. Up until and even post the acquisition.
Yeah, well, of course, Yum Brands then acquires you, and I imagine that really supercharges the strategy because Yum, of course, a tech innovator and incredible resources at its disposal. So how does that really turbocharge the approach you guys had for tech, if at all?
No, 100%, right? And so what we've been exposed to as such a small brand at Habit, and like I said, we were doing some really cool stuff, but we were doing it on such a small scale. And we were exposed to the world's largest restaurant company. And as you can imagine, just the resources we had access to, the incredible tech talent we had access to, but also, we were looking at robotics years ago. We were looking at, we started our AI journey a few years ago that just would have never happened if Habit was still an independent company of our size. And so, I'm on some phone calls with people way above my pay grade, just having some really, the relationships that Yum is able to cultivate is really interesting. But where Habit plays a really kind of a unique role in that is because we're primarily equity stores and because we are we already have the kind of that foundational layer with our back office and our POS and our digital stack. It's made it so we're very nimble and really agile and able to kind of integrate and move and test things. So in some cases, we've actually been like the incubator lab for Yum. And so they've come to us and say, hey, we got this interesting partnership with X, Y, Z, right? Would you guys mind testing it out and then being able to provide feedback? So it's really been a unique relationship in that we can kind of act as a smaller brand, but also leverage all of these great opportunities and the relationships, being able to pick up the phone and call somebody at Taco Bell or Pizza Hut and KFC and just like at some point, somebody in the 56,000 restaurants has tried or is solving for the same problem. So the amount of collaboration is really awesome and technical talent's incredible across the organization. Yeah, it's been fun.
What have you learned from those counterparts, though? I mean, are there certain strategies you've picked up, certain tools you've picked up that you watched Pizza Hut and KFC and Taco Bell?
Yeah, I think, again, I kind of hinted at it, but like just the power of scale and the leverage of scale. And so I'm a big proponent in like MVP and agile mindset and go to market quickly, right? And that's great. But I'm not always the best at like going back and like then building it out from there. And so when you do something at Yum, it's got to work across so many levels. And so just thinking through just what does that look like at 1,000 restaurants, 5,000 restaurants? What does that look like? I think Yum has something like 150 different brand market combinations, right? So how do you make that work at that scale across, when you have to deal with that level of localization? And so, some of the stuff, it's still great to move fast, and we don't want to lose that agility that we have at Habit, but they've helped set us up for just a bigger way of thinking about things.
Sure.
And so I think that's really been huge for us.
Is there a fear you have it all there too? Because like you specifically mentioned you guys being a kind of a guinea pig to some degree.
Sure.
But I imagine in your position, being asked to integrate a new technology, right, could be scary too, because what if it screws everything up or it doesn't work? Or I'm just wondering if like, is there ever that moment where that feels almost too big for a brand at the scale of Habit Burger?
I think one of the things that I'm also a believer in is just like failing fast and being able to recover from it, right? And so I think that's, again, just something that we're able to, because of our size and because of our kind of our equity structure, we're able to do that. And it's not failing for failure's sake, right? But like, you got to be able to recover from it, and you want to be able to learn from it, right? And so that's like, successful or not, just getting those learnings is important, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think in the old days, if we want to put out something like a kiosk, we'd sit around the table for 6 months, 9 months, like have all the different stakeholders like talking about, well, we need to do this, we need to do that. And then IT would disappear, and then they would come back with this solution that did all this stuff. And you find out like operators needed half of that, but they really needed this thing that we didn't even know about it, right? And so we've gotten really good at like, what's the core pieces that have to work, right? It's got to integrate to the system. We got to try and make it easier for the operators, but it's got to do like some core functionality. But let's put it out there, and then let's learn from it and iterate and engage with the stakeholders.
Sure.
And so I think that's something that Yum has really helped. They really kind of helped formalize us with some processes, I think is probably a good way to put it. Like, we practiced agile and we practiced the product model before we probably even knew that's what it was called, right?
Yeah.
But like, coming from an organization like Yum, they've got to be so buttoned up in some of that kind of stuff that has really helped us solidify things that kind of made sense, but like maybe we didn't know the proper name for it. And so that's really been helpful. But as far as like, I'd say the fear is just, we're still a small company with a relatively small team for what we're being asked to do. So being able to make sure that we keep our eye on the stuff that's the business needs to move forward and not get lost in, technology for technology's sake, right?
Right. Yeah, it's interesting, so much of the conversation around technology too. I think about the Habit Burger customer. How many of the Habit Burger customers know that you're owned by Yum Brands, right? Like, there's probably not a connection a lot of them make, right? They come for the great food. They like it, loyalty, whatever. But the reason I bring this up is, to get us into a conversation about front of house tech in particular, because the customer, again, is not going to know about the resources you have from Yum, but they might notice, oh, wow, Habit Burger's got this great new tech that I can use. So starting with front of house tech, tell me about your strategy with front of house tech. How much can you push innovation in front of the customer versus how much you want them, it to feel a little bit more like invisible tech, I guess?
Sure. Yeah.